This is CBC Vancouver News.
Are there ways that we don't have to link somebody to an individual prescriber?
BC's top doctor says it's time to make it easier for people to get a safer supply of drugs amid the deadly drug crisis. The province says no.
Those are all non-starters.
Plus, tragedy on our roads. 16 people have been killed in crashes across BC in the past week. And
any new start has the potential to be a challenge for our province, and we need to get on them quick and get them out fast.
BC calls in reinforcements amid a surge in new wildfires. Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. BC's medical health officer is calling for a drastic shift in the province's safer drug supply program. Dr. Bonnie Henry says people ought to be able to get opioids like hydromorphone without a prescription. But as Katie DeRosa reports, the BC government has quickly rejected that advice.
Those are all non-starters. We're not going to go down a path that separates people from healthcare.
That's Addictions Minister Jennifer Whiteside rejecting the recommendation from BC's public health officer that the government explore the use of compassion clubs or even retail stores to distribute hard drugs. Dr. Bonnie Henry's latest report on BC's Safe Supply program envisions a system where people no longer have to go to a pharmacist to access opioids like hydromorphone. Henry says there are too many barriers that prevent people from accessing safer supply drugs, and as a result, they turn to toxic and potentially lethal street drugs.
So we have to take evidence from other types of initiatives, for example, related to cannabis use in the past.
Critics say Henry's proposal would make hard drugs like heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamine as easy to get as cannabis.
One of the scenarios that they're proposing is that illicit drugs, find their way onto shelves, store shelves, be accessible to people through retailers, which I think is not only irresponsible, but frankly, I think it's dangerous.
Earlier this year, Premier David Eby recriminalized the use of hard drugs in public spaces, putting him at odds with Dr. Henry, who has long advocated for drug decriminalization. Henry's report says an example of a non-prescription model is the now shuttered Opioid Compassion Club operated by the Drug User Liberation Front, or DULF. DULF was shut down in October, and its co-founders were arrested and charged with possession for the purpose of trafficking. The province's Safe Supply program has come under fire recently, with Sturco and federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre calling prescription opioids government-supplied addictive drugs. University of Victoria researcher Bernie Pauly, who contributed to Henry's report, said urgent action is needed to stop people from using toxic street drugs, which are killing an average of 7 people a day.
People are dying now. And if we don't do something, we will be culpable for that in the future.
Dr. Henry seemed prepared on Thursday that the government would not be receptive to her approach to safe supply. She told reporters it's her role to provide the best advice on health issues, regardless of who is in political power. Katie DeRosa, CBC News, Victoria.
It has been a deadly week on roads throughout BC. Police say a series of crashes in the past 7 days have now killed 18 people, prompting police to boost warnings and patrols. Near Kiramias in the Okanagan, the RCMP says 4 family members died in a car crash Wednesday morning. 2 cars and a tractor trailer were involved on Highway 3. That road was closed for hours. It's still not clear what led to that crash. And earlier today, police announced 2 people had been killed in a collision near Boston Bar on Highway 1. Drive BC says that highway is not set to reopen until sometime tomorrow. Again, it's unclear what led to the collision. And these were the diversions on Highway 99 near King George Boulevard in South Surrey this morning. Police say a 20-year-old woman died in an overnight crash. The driver and another passenger were taken to hospital. Police believe speed may have played a role. Traffic was disrupted for several hours. BC Highway Patrol says clear summer conditions could be a factor in this week's crashes, and they note more officers will be out enforcing road rules. The BC government is warning our provinces heading into another possibly severe wildfire season. Hundreds of people are now on evacuation alert as a heat wave dries out forest fuels. By noon tomorrow, a campfire ban will be in place for most of BC. And as Tom Popock reports, a surge in new blazes is now threatening at least one interior community.
Wildfire smoke rising within distance of Kelowna and water bombers flying overhead to attack an overnight blaze burning near Peachland. Signs this interior wildfire season is just now heating up.
We are forecasting and anticipating the potential for a drastically accelerated situation here.
BC Emergency Management Minister Bowen Ma holding a wildfire update, reporting more than 150 active wildfires are now burning throughout the province. Some 40 started in just the past 48 hours after more than 13,000 lightning strikes swept through the Cariboo and north.
Every fire has the potential to be a concern if we don't get on it right away. And so we continue to surge aggressive initial attack to any new start.
Crews rushed to 33 new fires near Wells, BC, in the interior near Barkerville. An evacuation alert has been issued to some 200 people in the area. No residences are included in a mandatory evacuation order. Resident and volunteer firefighter Joey Only is standing by.
We are a small community that has only several road options, to get in and out. It's important that people who want to come out to vacation realize that there is a bit of a situation going on here nonetheless.
The BC Wildfire Service is now requesting out-of-province help. 180 firefighters, specialists, and bucketing aircraft to aid the full complement of 2,000 BCWS firefighters now on duty.
By being proactive in our request for additional resources, we can ensure that that lag that it often takes for additional resources to come in from out of province doesn't impact our ability to protect communities and protect British Columbians.
As temperatures continue to dry forest fuels and grassland, wildfire danger readings are rising. Communities like Vernon are now posting the hazard at extreme.
We did not see any rain, and we do not anticipate any rain anywhere else in BC for the next 10 days.
This Okanagan fire held, but a fire forecast likely to bring more smoke on the horizon. Tom Popock, CBC News, Kelowna.
Did you feel any of them? BC has seen 12 earthquakes off the west coast of Vancouver Island over the past week. And as Michelle Gomez reports, 4 tremors happened this morning alone. One that was a doozy.
Some Vancouver Island residents reported feeling an earthquake Thursday morning. It happened just after 8 a.m. about 180 kilometers west of Port Alice and measured at a magnitude of 6.4. It's one of a dozen earthquakes that have been detected in BC waters since the start of July, ranging between 3.9 and 6. Earthquakes Canada says a swarm of earthquakes like what we are currently seeing is not unusual in this area and happens about once a year. It says earthquakes are expected over the next few weeks, but none should exceed the 6.4 on Thursday morning.
We're not concerned, but we are always monitoring this area because it is an area of very active seismicity. These events are far enough offshore that the shaking from these events are not expected to cause any damage.
Paul says people should have an emergency kit ready in their homes, and in the case of a more serious quake, be prepared to drop, cover, and hold on. Michelle Gomez, CBC News, Vancouver.
More local politicians are calling for increased accountability at Metro Vancouver. 7 more city councillors from across the Lower Mainland say the regional authority needs greater oversight and are hoping BC's Auditor General will step in. As Michelle Gassoub reports, they join a slew of other politicians asking for more supervision.
The North Shore wastewater treatment plant hasn't gone to plan. Its cost has spiraled from $700 million to $3.86 billion. Its completion date pushed from 2020 to 2030. Now, 7 city councillors from 5 municipalities are calling on BC's Auditor General to investigate.
Focusing specifically on the North Shore project, where we've seen costs ballooning above and beyond anything else that we've seen.
The councillors have 3 calls to action for Premier David Eby, an independent governance review of Metro Vancouver, putting recommendations on the ballot during the next municipal elections, and a public inquiry from the Auditor General into cost overruns at the North Shore plant.
I think the Premier needs to call for an independent audit my preference would be an auditor general, but someone to come in that is independent and explain where all these cost overruns are coming and put some good financial controls in place at Metro.
Metro Vancouver did not respond to a request for comment, but said last month it would launch an independent review into the cost. Meanwhile, BC's Auditor General told CBC News it operates independently of the province and said its mandate does not include local government matters.
Not only am I hoping for accountability on this particular project, I'm hoping that this project and the accountability mechanisms that will result from the lessons learned of this project will then come into play for future projects where we don't have to go through this again, be it in the form of delay or in the form of excessive costs that are being levied onto our taxpayers.
To cover the cost of the plant, North Shore households will pay $590 a year for 30 years. The rest of the cost will be absorbed by other taxpayers across Metro Vancouver. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
Vancouver para-surfer Victoria Feige is trying to convince officials that para-surfing belongs in the Paralympics in 2028.
We met all of the criteria, and behind the scenes people were saying because surfing is the state sport of California and California is excited about it and surfing's in the Olympics and we've got the sport of pro surfers, all signs seem to point to yes. So we were pretty shocked and devastated when the reason given was cost and complexity.
She has the all-time great surfer Kelly Slater, as well as two-time Grammy winner and former pro surfer Jack Johnson supporting her cause. A petition started by American para-surfer Josh Bogle has now hit 10,000 signatures and above. Surfing debuted at the 2020 Olympics in Japan and is included in Paris this summer. Para-surfing is yet to make the Paralympics Games cut. The world's largest Highland dance competition is wrapped up in Kamloops. Close to 700 competitors from across Canada set off against each other, as well as athletes from Scotland, the U.S., and Australia. Shelley Joyce dropped by the Sandman Centre to watch.
When most people think of Highland dancing, they may not imagine the grueling workouts, the constant training, the serious skill, athleticism, and creative movement that this sport requires.
For this competition, the nerves are really high because this is the biggest one in Canada. And so a lot of people, this is their biggest competition they do.
About 2 minutes, we are dancing nonstop without stopping for breaks.
My mom, my aunt, and my grandma were all dancers. The top 3 in each age group get to dance here. So it's really an honor to dance here.
It's pretty hardcore. It's like you lose your breath. You have to do such hard skills while smiling and looking like it's super easy.
This is our biggest event in Canada. It happens once a year, every July, to feature our Canadian top dancers.
The competitors range in age from 6 to 21 plus. These kids from Calgary are here to appreciate the older dancers and to get a feel for the room.
My mom used to do dancing. Exciting and nervous.
What do you get out of dancing?
Medals, like proud kind of, to watch the big dancers.
We're here to share in the excitement of this Canadian competition. The girls have come to see the big girls compete and also to be part of this great community of Highland dancing. I think that the team environment, working with a school, having lots of peers that are doing the same thing, all here for the same goal, to cheer each other on, to do our best to improve ourselves, and yeah, just really to be a community together.
Shelley Joyce, CBC News, Kamloops.
Canada and the United States reach a preliminary deal to renew the historic Columbia River treating. Coming up, we'll tell you what the people affected by the massive project really want to know. A milestone has now been reached in the modernization of a massive, decades-old cross-border treaty. The Canadian and U.S. federal governments have finally reached an agreement in principle on the Columbia River Treaty. That update has taken years. And as Corey Bullock explains, the people affected want to know more.
But yet it's all of this land that's flooded. Some of this land gets flooded from Libby Dam.
It's an important day for Columbia River Treaty stakeholders. An agreement in principle has been signed that will help negotiations move forward.
This is a roadmap for our team to move forward and also to look to those next steps.
The treaty was originally signed in 1964. It outlines control of the giant river's water flow and the benefits that come from the production of its hydroelectric power on both sides of the border. It's taken 6 years to come to this agreement.
It's quite a day. It's a big step forward.
He says the agreement in principle outlines the compensation package for Indigenous nations, along with provisions for the forming of a joint ecological body. It also marks the beginning of a public consultation and information period for Columbia Basin residents.
I mean, negotiations have been going on for 8 years. I mean, discussions with the community started in 2012. From the entire basin community. So it's been an ongoing process. And as a lifelong resident, I've been here since I was a little kid and saw what happened, the impacts of the treaty when we first moved here and what happened. It's a good thing.
Most salmon runs on the Columbia River system have either declined steadily or have completely disappeared.
The Columbia River is a vast water body shared by many, but divided by borders and politics. It has long been a source for money, power, and life. And Casimir says it's important to remember the history.
The conversion of the Upper Columbia watershed into a massive reservoir system devastated innumerable plant and animal species, as well as our ancestral burial and cultural sites.
With the dams providing flood control, it also changed the landscape of farmland in places like Arrow Lakes.
None of these things actually were considered when the treaty was signed in the 60s. It was just about power generation and flood control, and that's it. You know, none of these other things were taken into consideration. Like, there's nothing about climate change and having the ability to adapt to future unknowns, things like drought.
But she says that will all change once the treaty is officially signed. And Conroy expects the ink to dry within the next year or so. Corey Bullock, CBC News, Cranbrook.
And there's a look at the sun saying a long goodbye over downtown Vancouver on another sunny, warm West Coast day. But many people are on evacuation alert because of wildfires in BC. Doris Madavi will have your province-wide weather picture right after this.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
CBC returns as a media partner of the Surrey Fusion Festival, July 20th to the 21st. The festival features over 50 cultural pavilions that will incorporate the theme of landmarks of the world into their displays. For more information, visit surreyfusionfestival.ca. And never miss a special programming series, event, or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter and keep connected with us.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Time for our BC-wide weather picture with science and climate specialist Darius Madavi. Darius, let's start with those evacuation alerts. We need to stress they are alerts in northern BC.
Yes, so this is in the northeastern part of the Caribou region. You can see that area there. We have one order, but not really affecting any properties, any addresses, so not really people affected there. Just stay out of that area. This evacuation alert does cover areas where you may find residences and properties, so not under order yet, but they are should be aware that they can be evacuated at any time. And then this is only covering the alerts issued by the district. There's also a regional alert, evacuation alert issued by the Caribou region surrounding this area as well, so be aware of that. Also an evacuation alert just south of Dawson Creek here because of another fire, and then just 5 kilometers west of Peachland we have another fire that crews are actively fighting, and do not see any warnings issued there yet, but that could change, especially if we start to see that fire activity jump further. One thing I want to highlight is the fact that with this ridge starting to calm down, remember we had that cold front pass over the north, brought some good precipitation, brought that fire danger down a little bit, but in the south, because of that ridge is retreating, but not totally going away, we're not going to see any precipitation come into that region, at least nothing significant, no major front, but we're losing that effect it has on suppressing lightning activity. So there could now be more convective storms popping up, watching the Okanagan and the Thompson for that tomorrow. Remember, that fire danger may have dropped in the north, but it could spike again tomorrow if we start to see more of that fire, if we start to see those temperatures come back up quickly and we see lots of dry conditions. Although we may get some precipitation up in parts of the north as we get into the weekend, probably overnight Saturday into Sunday, it's unlikely to make its way too much, or at least much of it, to the northeast. So expect to see that fire danger probably jump a little bit quicker than the northwest, although remains to be seen that could change. Hopefully we'll get some good precipitation here and not really lightning activity to go with it. Our highs are continuing to stay high in the southern interior. Here on the coast, staying a few degrees above seasonal, but fairly consistent and not at dangerous levels for the most part. If we take a look at our conditions across the province tomorrow, lots of sunshine across the board, but we are watching this part of the interior for that risk of convective activity, some lightning strikes. We saw on Tuesday night how quickly we can see those new fire starts if we do see even just a small storm cell pop up with lots of lightning, so that's a place to be watching. Here in Vancouver, though, not really looking at any excitement, just sunshine, at least until we get into next week. Maybe next Wednesday, we start to see the pattern shift a little bit, but for now, just count on the sunshine, Dan.
Okay, Darius, thanks very much.
Thank you.
And finally, it is summer, the weekend is coming, and some of you may be looking for someone to spend some time with. That, apparently, conjures up a debate as old as time. Who pays on a first date? The CBC's Missy Johnson hit the streets to find out how some locals foot the bill when they're dating.
Who pays on the first date?
The man, always.
The man.
Yes.
Why?
It's
just gentleman-like, yeah. It's the first date. Who's paying?
I'll pay the first few dates.
Yeah?
And then I think after that, if you can go 50-50, that's ideal.
That's a good question. I feel like I'm always prepared to pay, but I mean, if you want to pay, I'm not going to say no, but I'm always prepared to pay for myself.
Yeah, I'd say the same. If someone invites me out and I say yes, I'm going under the assumption that I'm going to be paying. First date, last date, whatever it is. So I always assume to pay.
Well, we live in one of the most expensive cities, so I think it's fair to split the bill, and that's fine.
I think we split ours.
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah, we did. May I ask how you decided to do that?
We were getting drinks at a bar, and I think, I paid.
You did?
Yeah, but she got the next one.
Yeah.
Date 2, she paid.
Cool, you know? Yeah, don't want to expect anything. Who pays when you go out on a date?
Split. Yeah, split
Always.
it. I agree. Yeah, at least on the first date.
I guess even in Germany, it's usually him paying for the first date.
Yeah, you paid for our first date, that's true.
Well.
It would have been me. It was 44 years ago, so, things were a little bit different then.
Really? That's your late news for Thursday. Thank you for joining us tonight. For news anytime, check our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5:30. And I'll see you tomorrow night at 6. Good night.